So myself, Chandra, I have around 14 plus years of experience in the Salesforce industry where I work for sales projects. When I say sales cloud projects on the service cloud sometime, and also on CPQ, on the customization, on the configuration as well. And then later I was completely handling the DevOps, and I was the DevOps. I was doing some DevOps projects, architecting some of the DevOps projects there. So in some of the companies. So I worked with a couple of major companies where uh, the tools that we used for deployments, starting from change sets to till date. I mean, till we have Azure DevOps or GitLab, right? So a lot of tools I got chance to work on, like change sets, Workbench, Visual Studio Code, Copado, and GitHub Actions, GitLab pipelines, Azure pipelines, etc. So as a part of this series, right? So first we need to understand what is this DevOps and why this DevOps came into picture and why we need to learn the DevOps and why Salesforce people have the different role as named as Salesforce DevOps. You can see in the LinkedIn or the Naukri that the DevOps engineer is purely different compared to the Salesforce DevOps engineer. So when it comes to Salesforce DevOps engineer, so when it comes to a Salesforce DevOps engineer, um, first of all, why we need a separate DevOps engineer? Why can't we have a developer doing everything, like doing a development, doing a deployment, and then post that making changes to the environment? Why we are not giving access to developer? The problem here is that if you give access to developer, that means that your project is in trouble. I'll tell you why. So let's say you take an example of you've given complete access to developer, and developer is now he want to deploy a story. What he will do, he will make changes to some of the components, and then he will try to deploy that story to the next environment. So when he deployed the story to the next environment, he got a test class failure. He fixed some like one line or two lines, he fixed it, and then he's trying to deploy it now. So what he will do is he will not follow the process, which means that he will not commit the changes to Git, and then he will not do the deployment via tool. He will directly go to the org and he will make the changes directly in the org. Right? Now what happens? Now let's say the person who is doing is Chandra now. Okay, now another guy came, Chandra one, and he's trying to deploy the story. He followed all the process and he's trying to deploy the story to the next step. When he's trying to deploy the story to the next step, he's getting a test class failure. And when he checked the code and the code is not there in the GitHub, so then the problem comes, and now they will not understand whom to reach out. The problem is that both they will fight, and they will say that it's your problem and it's your problem. And at last, what is stopping whatever your process? That means that whatever you have a model, right? You will follow agile process methodology or a waterfall process methodology, and you want to deliver the stories and you want to deploy the stories to orgs on what are the dates that are given by your leads or what are the story given by your scrum masters. And these people are still fighting, and your I mean, Jira stories has to complete. Now, what will happen is that this will get piled up, and this stories will get moved to the next sprint, etc., etc. There will be a lot of issues which will be coming up. What if you have a dedicated DevOps engineer? What this guy will do? This guy will help these developers in moving the user stories in a right way, in the right process. And also this guy will help in case developer one is facing any issue with respect to anything with the conflict or a test class failure, and also with for developer two as well. So this makes the process free, and this makes deployments to go through in. This makes the compliance thing, and this makes the process, whatever the DevOps guy is there, right? What he is doing is that he is making sure that the people will follow the process in moving the stories to the next target instances. So that is where you need a dedicated people in moving the components. In some of the components, if you have a one developer for a particular organization, right, we cannot do anything. We cannot have a dedicated DevOps in there. But in latest market, in every company, a DevOps engineer is needed for Salesforce because there are a lot many things that this guy is responsible for. I'm trying to give you some example with respect to Salesforce. Firstly, I want to understand how are you guys basic understanding of Salesforce. So you can see in the LinkedIn also that there are many people looking for Salesforce DevOps engineer, and you can see that there are a lot of roles and responsibilities that they define. The first thing is that they say is that you should know the Salesforce and you must understand the Salesforce projects. When I say Salesforce projects, which means that at least you need to understand the navigation part. For example, if somebody says that, boss, can you go to the custom setting and can you go to one of the custom setting and can you create a record because this cannot be deployed? So in that case, you should understand in a position that for a pre-step or a post-step, you should be able to understand and you should be able to make the changes to the platform. So if you know the such kind of steps, right, that is very easy for other person to tell you and then so that you can pick up very fast, right? Keep that aside and let's focus on what is this Salesforce DevOps. As I said, right, why this role has been evolved and how we can put this in a real time, the Salesforce DevOps with other tools different. When I say other tools different, they have Kubernetes and they have Amazon workspaces and they have etc. etc. We don't require all those things for a Salesforce DevOps engineer. It's like this is one of my org where one of my personal org where I use for all the demos and also the training. So this is my Salesforce, one of the instance, which means that one of my developer account where it is free, where if I have a Gmail account, I can open the Salesforce account. So firstly, we'll understand the step-by-step process. So what is the Salesforce? Salesforce is a CRM model or a CRM kind of a thing, which everybody talks about. Salesforce is number one CRM, number one CRM, and how this evolved. As you know, before you have Siebel, which means that before Salesforce, you have Siebel. And Mark Benioff, as you know, the Salesforce co-founder who was working with Oracle, he got an idea of Salesforce where he took this idea to the Oracle and team and he said that this will work instead of Siebel. And his idea was rejected, and that is where he formed with a group of people. And that is where he started with the Salesforce. How it is different from Siebel? The first thing they have done is that Salesforce is on cloud. Okay. And the second part is that the servers maintenance is being taken care by Salesforce. And the third part, platform as a service, which means that you don't need to download any software to log into org. You can use the developer console where you can make the changes and where you can work anywhere, which means that if you go to mobile and if you open a developer console and you can write the code in mobile as well, you don't require any tool to be downloaded. Example for Java, you need to download multiple extensions to work on Java. For example, if you want to work on Python, you need to download a Python to work on Python. If you want to work on some other tools, you need to have their list of libraries to be available. Otherwise, you cannot work. But Salesforce, it's on web, you can work also without having any tool locally downloaded, which means that there is no software which need to be downloaded. There is no physical server maintenance which is done by us. So which means that the lot of headache is gone. So people started showing interest to Salesforce and their sales process also and their service journey process and they have their managed package also. They have a proper defined process which every year they are coming with three kind of upgrades like summer, winter, spring upgrades. So they've given a clear model that everybody is able to understand clearly and it is very easy to navigate the Salesforce. They came up with three kind of cloud first, sales cloud, service cloud, and you have the marketing cloud and you have financial. If it is related to health cloud, you have a health cloud, right? So and so on, we have it. So let's talk about sales cloud. So I will tell you why we are talking about. Sir, I already know Salesforce, why you are talking. I'll tell you why we are talking and how it is related to DevOps. I'll tell you. So in Sales Cloud, let's say you take an example. I will tell the same example for every batch. So I'm repeating the same thing here as well. Let's say you take a campaign. When I say campaign, here you are seeing a campaign object, right? You take this objects and you put it in a real model. Let's say you know the shopping malls, right? You will see some of the malls in Hyderabad around like in Orbit Mall or anything, right? So, and if you see some of the people, they're putting a campaign, which means that they're putting an umbrella outside and they're trying to sell the SIMs, like a Geo Mobile free SIM, so that you can do a recharge and then they can get some benefit out of it. Which means that first thing is that you're doing a campaign. You take the same example and you put it to Salesforce. That is where your Sales Cloud is having. Campaign you're doing the same thing. If you need to understand more Salesforce, why this campaign object is there, and if you put the same thing to a real world, right? The guy who is selling the SIMs, first what he's doing is that he's doing a campaign. From the campaign, who will get? He will get a lead, which means that somebody comes to him and they ask, boss, how much is the SIM? And he will make the discussion with him and he will try to create an opportunity, which means that he will try to use his sales skills and he will try to convert him as he will make him take that particular SIM. He will take that opportunity and he will try to create an account. With the account, he will have a contact of the particular person, which means that the guy who is selling the SIM, they will take the SIM from him, which means that he will try to sell the SIM. And then from that SIM, you will create a contact and you will create a account. That means that, okay, in your system, you'll feed it. So Chandra, his mobile number, the campaign is came from, you will ask him, what is your lead source? He will say that, no, I'm just going and then I saw your uh, campaigning. So lead sources like some newspaper or a physical place, etc. And he will create all the details and he will put it in the Salesforce, which means that for a sales journey guy process, what he will do is that he will create a campaign first, which means that he goes and he creates a campaign record. And in the campaign record, he will fill all the details. What is this type? Whether it's a webinar, whether it's a public relationships, whether it's a referral program, whether it's an advertisement, etc. And the status is in progress or completed, etc. So we'll create a campaign. What is an expected revenue from campaign? What is the budget cost? What is the actual cost? In earlier days, you used to have everything on a paper. Now you want to have something to be done for the system. If Airtel is giving his own software, that is different. If Airtel is giving Salesforce as a software, which means that they gives you Salesforce out and you enter all the details of the sales journey process, they will come here and they will enter all the details here. Now, Chandra, why we need to learn that? It's already known that, okay, the campaign is there, okay. Why we are learning this? Now, let's say in the campaign name, let's say I'm giving us GeoSync network and it is an active. And I have some fields here. These are standard fields. Let's say expected response, actual cost in campaign, budget cost in campaign is metadata, which means that what are the value I'm giving here? This is data. Metadata can be deployed. Data can be moved to data loader from one of them, which means that let's say if I want to have another field, I need to go for customization, which means that I need to create one more field and then that field I need to deploy it or I need to move it. So if it is a metadata, then you need to deploy it. If it is a data, then you need to move it. When you say move it, using a data loader or an inspector or a workbench, or we have a lot of tools available where we can move the data, but metadata can be deployed. Chandra, why we need to deploy? You can directly go and create in the next target arbor. Let's say I have 20 orgs. You create in 20 orgs manually. It's a tedious work. And what is the resource tracking available? I mean, where you're tracking this? What if somebody should not overwrite my changes? So that is the reason we are connecting this with a Git where that is our version control to make sure that whatever I'm making the changes that I'm pushing to GitHub and later the other person also when he's trying to make the changes and trying to push to GitHub, he will see, okay, I have a conflict because somebody has made the changes. I need to make sure that I should not overwrite the changes. So this is where your Salesforce DevOps journey starts. And this is where the developer will create a story and then they will hand over to you. And that is where you will take that story and you will move the changes to the next target instance. Is it only your job and do you have any other extra activities that you have it? Yes, you have. There are a lot many activities that Salesforce DevOps Engineer has to do it. This is one of the major activity, the primary activity you are responsible for, and moving the metadata from auth to org. So from dev to the next instance also, is it our responsibility? If you're taking yours, you can do it, or if you can give it to developer and later the other rocks you can. I'll try to show you a sample example. Sorry, any doubts here, guys? I just want to park here for any doubts. If not, I'll go for a next topic. I'll take it as no. Now, we are, as we discussed, this is metadata and this is data. So the metadata can be deployed and data can be moved. So what if I need a new field? So I'll go to setup and then I'll go to campaign object and I'll create a new field. And then I'll create a package.xml and then deploy it. So that is what we do it. Now, what if I just created one diagram? Just want to show you. What if I have a complicated pipeline? Sir, what is this pipeline? Will not understand if you say all these boxes. So what is pipelines? So in 2000s, in 2000 era, Salesforce is having only the way of moving the components through chain sets. If you ask me what are chain sets are internal tool to move the components from one org to another org, which is given by Salesforce, where you can deploy a particular field or a particular class or a particular object from one org to another org. But your Salesforce org is not connected to GitHub, which means that it is not version control. And you cannot see the metadata what is being deployed by chain sets. So that's the problem where you cannot see what it is being getting deployed. And there are lot many issues which is coming up because there are lot many override of components is being happened and people are exhausted or people are frustrated with the Salesforce changes and Salesforce has brought up with ANT, which is now deprecated, which means that ANT is no longer used by the people. So that is where what ANT is doing. So in ANT, you can see the metadata, what is getting deployed, but ANT is also not connected to any GitHub or a GitLab or a Bitbucket or any version control. And later, you have a tool called Workbench. In Workbench, you can deploy the metadata, but it is not connected to any version control. And later, you have a Bamboo and Jenkins, where these are connected to version control. And that is where your Salesforce DevOps Engineer has been started. And people started using it. But the problem here is that people should understand Bamboo and Jenkins, and people should learn the Jenkins script, or people should understand how to commit out, how to push, and how to pull the changes. So that is where some of the companies, what they thought was, okay, this is the right time. What if we have everything automation? What if we give a tool to the people where they have the UI and they can learn using the UI? So that is where you got Copado into picture. That is where you got Flowsim into picture. That is where you got AutoRabbit into picture. That is where you got GearSet into picture. That is where you have Opsera comes into picture. That is where you have a lot of tools comes in the market. So as a part of this course, we are trying to learn Copado end to end, which means that you will be a Copado engineer after finishing of this course, where we are learning both the formats, metadata format and a source format. And you'll be trained on metadata format and source format with the pipelines, how to create a pipeline and how to move the changes from one to another org and how to do integrations between Copado and Zira and Copado and other integrations available, connecting with the Salesforce code analyzer tool as well, etc. With Copado, how much we are going to do? We are going to do all the things in this particular action of codes. And the next thing is that we are going to learn the GitLab and the Azure DevOps as a part of it, which means that we'll be writing some simple scripts using what do we call? I forgot the name of it. YAML. Using YAML, you'll write some script, and we are going to deploy the changes using YAML for GitLab and for Azure DevOps pipelines. And post that, we are learning the Salesforce change management process, and then post that we are going to learn Salesforce sandbox refresh technologies, methodologies. And at last, and while the course is running, we are going to talk the questions that are being asked as a part of the interview process scenarios as well. And at last, I'll be sharing some resumes where you can apply, where you can use it, and then apply for Salesforce DevOps Engineer. And if you ask me how is the market, it is good, it is stable, and people are still looking. And if you have any doubts, you can go to LinkedIn and then you can check it with Salesforce DevOps in their role, because you cannot automate everything on the Salesforce DevOps side, because Salesforce itself says that you cannot deploy it some other components. So in that case, you cannot have any tool or a chat GPT or any other tool to move such changes from one or another or using any automation or anything, because Salesforce itself, you don't have the option to deploy to the next target instance. So in that case, you need to go with manual, or you need to go with the deployment process, and where they need a dedicated person to help with the process, to help with the deployment. Let's say my organization is of 10 people and I want to move the changes, and I have tightly releases, and I have tightly deadlines, and I want to reach the sandbox every year, and I want to create a SSO configuration. There are a lot of things that this DevOps guy is responsible for. The first thing is that, let's say if somebody wants to have a user creation, DevOps engineer is responsible. Let's say somebody wants to have a integration that need to be set on a particular org. DevOps person is responsible because he will sit with the developer to create such configuration like connected app, etc., external app, or etc., etc. Let's say SSO configuration that is required on Salesforce. Who is responsible? Salesforce DevOps engineer will be there to set up some SSO configuration, and if there is any certificate expiry or anything, right? This guy is majorly responsible in making the changes to the org. So he can take the help with the help of developer to make such changes. Let's say somebody wants to make sure that they should not have system admin on org, and who will be monitoring it? The Salesforce DevOps engineer. Somebody is making directly changes in org. Who is responsible? Salesforce DevOps engineer is responsible to make sure that people are restricted with the access. And you have deployments. Salesforce DevOps Engineer is responsible for doing the deployments. And you have what do we call manual steps. Salesforce DevOps Engineer is responsible. You have a change request that need to be raised for a weekend to move the changes, or you need to approve the change requests. So who is responsible? The Salesforce DevOps Engineer. So let's say, Chandra sir, in our organizations for Salesforce users, we have a dedicated people and we are not creating it. That will be there for production, not for lower instances. You will not have any dedicated team for lower instances. The developer will create or somebody will create. But Salesforce DevOps Engineer will set a process to make sure that they should follow all the, for a particular org, they should follow a proper they should follow a process, which means that the user creation has to be done by DevOps, and in org everything need to be controlled and maintained by a DevOps engineer, right? So these many roles and responsibilities that the DevOps engineer will play. It's not just only the deployment that you guys are doing it, and also the back promotion and the forward promotion in addition to that, and the data deployments as well. It's your responsible. And if there is a team dedicated to production, that production will take care. But for lower sandboxes, they definitely will ask you support only to make the changes, right? So if somebody has a doubt for doing a deployment, why we need a dedicated engineer, this is what it is. If somebody doesn't have a process, you need to set the process, that you need to tell them to follow the process, that sir, where we need to have a governance process, which means that as soon as a user story is created, the pull request should be reviewed and approved. Then only we should deploy a store. And we should integrate with the PMD or a code scan or anything to make sure that there should not be vulnerabilities. The code coverage should be more than 75%. And the person who is deploying, right, it should be deployable only to the next target instance, not for higher environments. So like that, you need to restrict the people in having the lesser access and put more dependency on you. So that is where you need to do when you join any organization as a Salesforce DevOps. right? Let's take a small example. And in one of the interview process, I was asked, can you create a small pipeline like a visual diagram and tell me that how you can manage the list of sandboxes? I have around some 8 sandboxes, 8 to 9 sandboxes, and I want to implement using Copado. Can you tell me how you can implement it? So in that case, what I'll do on the left side, I'll create multiple sandboxes, dev2, INT, dev3, and dev4, and everything is getting connected to INT. From there, I created one more sandbox which connects to my UAT. That's one more, it's connected to prod, and I have hotfix which is connected to production. And where what are the stories which I have developed by dev1 to INT, dev2 sandbox will not have. So in that case, what I should do back promotion. The same thing, dev3 is pushing to INT sandbox, but dev1 and dev2 components will not be there in dev3. So in that case, dev1 stories and dev2 stories will I have to back promote to my dev3 sandbox. In the same way, dev4, I'll have only my components. I'll not have dev3, I'll not have dev2, I'll not have dev1. So in that case, 3 sandbox components I need to do back promotion. All right. So don't get confused with this one. It's just a simple thing which I've created just to show you that how a pipeline looks like. And this is how the pipeline looks. So I'll pause here for some time and understand your questions. As I said, these are my what we call. Let me put Salesforce deployment tools that we're going to discuss. Workbench, VS Code, Copado, SFDX, Copado SFDX, and GitLab pipelines, Azure DevOps, Salesforce refresh process for full copy, sandbox, Salesforce change management process, Salesforce data deployments using inspector, workbench, etc. This takes 20 days of time. This one I'm talking about, only this Copado. So our codes will be 30 business days, which means that Monday to Friday around 8 a.m. IST we'll have class, or might be 7:50 a.m. IST. Salesforce governance process, conflict resolution, etc. So we are going to learn these many things as a part of this course. So I'll give a pass here. I'll stop for. I thought to show you some demo on Copado, but you will not understand, guys. Trust me. If I say anything now for a demo purpose, like taking one tool and just telling you, will not understand anything. So I just want to give you a high level overview picture that what does the Salesforce DevOps role is, and what are the roles and responsibilities that you guys are going to do, and how it is different with a normal DevOps, right? With a normal DevOps engineer, they don't need to know any tool or anything, but here you need to know the tool because you are making some of the changes here as a part of this tool, which means that you should understand like small admin role, basic admin role. So that is where you will have your job also saved. So some of the people, they are not majorly doing all these things. So is it mandatory that we should do all the things? I would say if you do all the things, your job will be safe and you will play major role, trust me, in the company. Okay. So I'll give a pass here. All right then. Thanks all. Thanks for your time, guys. Bye.